Hello students, I hope you all are doing fine. Today in this video we will be learning new lesson, that is lesson 9, The Boy Who Wanted to Read. In this lesson we will be learning new words, new terms, difficult words, so you will have to open your book, go and grab your book and turn to page 74 and also listen to the story carefully as I read and follow me.
Lesson 9. The Boy Who Wanted to Read. Before we go through some difficult words and their meanings, I would like to ask you a question. Do you ever wonder how fortunate you are to see the beauty of God's creation and read books, watch TV or play games? It is indeed a blessing that we are able to go to school, read, learn, memorize because we are able to see. Have you ever tried to guess an object by shutting your eyes and holding them, feeling them? As you do that, you realize the sense of touch does help you understand the details of the object, right? That sense of touch is what helps blind people understand objects, places, and even read books. Yes, there are some who aren't as fortunate as others are. There are people who are unable to read, write, walk, or talk. So in this lesson, we are going to read about a boy with disability who achieved his dream and also helped people like him across the world to read and write. Let us read some of the difficult words and their meanings from the lesson. Curious, eager to know or learn something. Awl, a small pointed tool used for piercing holes, especially in leather. Curious, you will find in page 74. Awl, you will find in page 74 itself on the third paragraph. Do underline that. Intently, with great attention. Infected, affected with a disease-causing organism. A disease in a part of the body that is caused by bacteria or virus. Infection, the state of being infected. As we go through the word meanings, I would like you to underline it in your book. Adapt, here live a normal life despite his handicap. Determined, wanting to do something very much and not allowing anyone or any difficulties to stop you. His disability, here not being able to see. Didn't think twice, didn't have any doubts. Bulky, large and heavy. Visually impaired, partly or completely blind. Complex, here difficult to read and understand. Fate, something that unavoidably befalls a person, fortune or lot. Vacation, holiday. In a flash, suddenly. Blunt, not sharp. There was a time not long ago when most people thought that the blind could never learn to read. It was believed that the only way to read was to look at words with your eyes. A young French boy named Louis Braille thought otherwise and made books come alive for the blind. At that time, most people who were blind were helpless. They had to depend on others. Only the wealthy or those of a high position had any hope of getting an education or earning a decent living. Many even ended up becoming beggars. The year was 1812. In a small town near Paris, 3-year-old Louis was playing in his father's workshop. Mr. Braille made leather objects and had many special tools. Now Mr. Braille here is the father of Louis Braille. Little Louis often spent the day playing there. Stay away from those nails, Mr. Braille instructed Louis. Often Louis was told not to touch any of those sharp objects. Louis nodded. He looked intently at the things his father made. Curious little Louis decided to try his hand with the tools too. He picked up an awl. What is an awl? A sharp, pointed stick with a wooden handle. Mr. Braille used it to make holes in leather. Since leather is a strong and durable material, a sharp tool like an awl is often used. Mr. Braille used it to make holes in leather. As he played with the awl, Louis' hand slipped. He let out a loud cry. Mr. Braille rushed to his son, but the damage was done. The awl had hit one of Louis' eyes. "We are going to take you to a doctor," Mr. Braille cried, carrying his son on the streets. However, within a few days the wound got infected. The infection spread to Louis' other eye and the boy became blind. So within weeks of the accident, an eye infection took away his sight completely. As he grew older, Louis learned to adapt. He went to school with all his friends and did well in his studies. He was intelligent and creative. Most importantly, Louis was determined not to let his disability slow him down one bit. Few opportunities existed for the blind at the time, so his father urged him to attend school with sighted children. He was an excellent student, mostly because of his exceptional memory. Soon, Louis heard of a special school in Paris for blind students. He didn't think twice about going. He packed his bags and went off to study there. Louis did not think whether he should go or not. He knew that was where he needed to go, so he hurriedly packed his bag and went there to study. At the school, Louis realized that there were special books for the blind to read. Valentine Haüy, the founder of this school, had made books with large letters that were raised up off the page. Since the letters were so big, the books were bulky. Also, they were expensive to make. The school had exactly 14 of them. That means there were only 14 books for all the blind students in that school. Filling each letter with his fingertips, Louis set about reading the books in the school library. However, this was a long and difficult task. It took a few seconds to read each word, so by the time he reached the end of a sentence, Louis almost forgot what the beginning of the sentence was about. There must be a better way, Louis said to himself, and, as he soon found out, there was. As it was a long process, it was difficult for the blind people to read the book. Therefore, Louis thought that there must be another simpler way to make the reading better. Louis thought long and hard about a way for the visually impaired to read. Visually impaired are partly or completely blind people. Others had created symbols that could be read by touch. However, this finger reading was slow and difficult, and the symbols were complex, which means the symbols were difficult to read and understand. Louis wanted an alphabet code to make reading by touch quick and easy. As fate would have it, Louis soon got the chance he was looking for. He heard about something called night writing, designed by Captain Charles Barbier. The French army used this method to read messages in the dark. At night, soldiers could not read written messages because they would need light to read. If they lit a match, the light might attract the enemy's attention. Instead, they used an alphabet code made up of small dots and dashes. The symbols were raised up off the paper so that soldiers could read them by running their fingers over them. Louis tried out the code. He saw that it was good, but he wanted to improve it further. Charles Barbier developed night writing so that soldiers could communicate safely during the night. As a military veteran, Barbier saw several soldiers killed because they used lamp after dark to read combat messages. As a result of the light shining from the lamps, enemy combatants knew where the French soldiers were, and inevitably led to the loss of many men. The problem with the military code was that the human fingertip could not feel all the dots with one touch. On his next vacation home, Louis spent all his time working on this system of writing. As he sat there in his father's leather shop, Louis picked up one of the awls. The idea came to him in a flash. The very tool that had caused him to go blind would now help him to read. So suddenly, Louis Braille had an idea that the very tool that caused him blind would become useful in helping him to read. Over the next few days, he worked on an alphabet made up entirely of 6 dots. The position of the different dots created the different letters of the alphabet. Louis used a blunt. All, blunt means not sharp, all to punch out a sentence. Holding his breath, he read it quickly. That means that he is excited and at the same time he is very nervous. Everything made sense. His plan had worked. Louis had invented a new system of reading and writing for the blind, and the boy was only 15 years old. This system for reading and writing is used all over the world today. It is simply known as Braille. Today, the blind can read maps in Braille. Special Braille computers enable them to work and connect with the online world. Since Louis loved music, he also created a musical code in Braille. This helps the blind read musical notes and compose tunes. So after all of Braille's work, the code was now based on cells with only 6 dots instead of 12. This improvement meant that the fingertip could encompass the entire cell unit with one impression and move rapidly from one cell to the next. Over time, Braille gradually came to be accepted throughout the world as the fundamental form of written communication for blind individuals. Today, it remains basically as he invented it. Braille, special Braille computers enabled the blind people to work online, and also since he loved music, he created musical notes and also composed tunes. A few years ago, India issued a special 2 rupee coin to mark the 200th birth anniversary of Louis Braille. The coin bears his portrait and also has his name written in Braille. In many countries, there are Braille symbols on currency notes. This helps the blind identify the value of notes. The government of India issued 2 rupee coin to commemorate the 200th birth anniversary of Louis Braille, that is the year 1809 to 2009. However, all this was possible only because of a blind boy with a dream. Louis Braille not only achieved his dream to read and write, but also helped thousands across the world to read and write too. The Braille system of reading and writing had helped people across the world, the blind people across the world, to read and write. So, Louis Braille will always be remembered for his achievement. Despite his disability, he achieved his dream and also helped blind people across the world achieve their dreams.
Thank you, children, for watching the video. You must underline and practice those difficult words, and also go through the lesson, read the lesson by yourself. Thank you.